Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Counter Clipping show number 218, and I see that the number is wrong in the title. Sorry about that. It's correct on the thumbnail. Our topic tonight is fresh starts in Wargaming. We'll talk about that. I'll talk about my experience having had kind of a fresh start in Wargaming. We are clipping Advanced Squad Leader, still on the British, and we'll probably finish the British infantry, like the support weapons, the half-inch counters, tonight, but I haven't touched the vehicles yet. One of the things with that is I've got two sets of vehicle counters, and I got to make sure I'm clipping the right one. We are drinking Glenmorangie La Santa, finished in sherry casks at 43%. It is very tasty. I did put a wee bit of water into it. I like the regular Glenmorangie, too. It's one of my preferred, if I'm like at a bar that doesn't have a good selection of scotch, I will often get Glenmorangie, actually. All right, so before we get started on anything else, we have changed the camera angle, and I have to lean forward more. That's, oh well. I guess we will deal with it tonight, and that might actually work. So, remind everybody to like the video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, follow if you're watching over on Twitch. I don't know what you would do on Facebook, but give it a shot. I have no idea. Big shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whose support and encouragement we would not be able to keep doing this. So big shout out to the patrons of the channel, and to our partners at Noble Knight Games, who are the official sponsors of the Counter Clipping show, and from whom we will hear a little bit later. Before we go I just moved this thing, and now I was reaching for where it was. Before we get any farther, let's say hello to Aaron Dennis, Alistair Logie, B-Rad N, Bill Simone, Board Gaming Geezer, Brent McCabe, Chad Kennedy, Charles Latorre, Chet Bell, Christophe DeClerc, Danny Gable, Danny Seckery, Dave Poirier, David Zell, DJ Flippy is here, Emily Starsmith, welcome to the stream. Eric Goebel, Forlorn, High Flyer, HUN644, the legend himself, Fucko, is here. Grunyard Rich just popped in. Jeff, let's see. I got lost now. James Whitmer, Jeff Anderson, Jeff Beeler, Jeff Edwards, Jeff T, Joe Hammond, Joe Okabayashi, John Mogg, John Madison is here. John, thanks for stopping by. Carl Crater from the Wargame Boot Camp, Lee Grant, Lynn Pratt is here from sunny Central Ohio, Mark Dennehy, Mr. Mark Herman is in the house. Mark, thanks for stopping by. Meandering Mike, Michael Evanzini, Paul Dangle, Paul Sin, Perfidious Albion, Perry G, Perry Sparopoulos, Rob Johnson, Royce, Scott Bell, Sean Sullivan, Stacking Limit, Tim Greenhaw, Tim Zales, Tony Mammal, Vince Ree, Wargame Ramble, welcome back, and Winterson. I apologize to anyone that I have missed. Somebody, I think it was Vince. So last night, for those who didn't know, we're kind of segueing into the news here. As the last of the intro business, I will put a link to the Ardwulf Lair Discord community in the chat, so people can hop on in there. It is a hopping place these days, so do so. It's a very nice community that we have managed to build there. So as you might know, on the Chit Show last night, I did a little bit of a Wargame sale. This was kind of because Dan wants to do one, and I kind of wanted to support Dan in that, so I pulled 12 games off the shelf of things that I'm considering getting rid of, and managed to sell all but 2 of them. I am putting the kibosh on any further sales from that batch, the 2 games that remain unsold, which were Pacific War and Fornovo 1496, or whatever, 1490, whatever it was. Those didn't sell. They'll end up in the next batch whenever we do the next batch. So, speaking of the update on that, with the exception of one person who paid me at like 6 p.m., everybody who has paid me has had their things shipped out, or things as the case may be. Somebody got 4 games, so something like 7 have gone out already. I've got 4 games left to ship. 1 is going to be a physical handoff, and the other 2 are sitting in boxes right here. They're boxed up, ready to go, and the other 3, I should say, there's another one in the other room because I think there's going to be an issue with it, and I would like to run it through pirate ship again. So thanks for everybody that bought stuff. That is much appreciated. And don't forget that Dan will be selling War Games next week. And he did a little preview video. I don't know if that's the actual list he's going to be going through or not, but he's going to be unloading a lot of stuff. So you do want to probably check in next Sunday's Chit Show at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I guess we're just calling it Eastern Time now. All right, so we covered that. A reminder that the Song for War Mediterranean Theater Kickstarter goes live on April 23rd. There's also a Traveler Kickstarter that's going live Thursday of this week. for the Singularity campaign. Nobody really knows what it's about other than that AI is involved. So it could be the virus ships and all that stuff. Who knows? We will see how it looks. I have essentially no information on it at this time. We do have the opportunity to have a trade-in code for first-time people trading into Noble Knight. So if anybody wants that code, let me know. I'll just throw it in the chat, but I gotta fish it out of correspondence here, so bear with me while I babble. This is a code. You know what? It's a little complicated, so I'm not going to put it in there. If you are interested in doing a first-time trade with Noble Knight, trade in your own stuff, let me know via email, ardwulfslair@gmail.com. That is in the banner, which I will turn on, and I will shoot you that info, because there's a code plus an instruction on how to use the code. So I would prefer that people get the actual full information, which I cannot put in the chat. So anyway. All right. Somebody asked, excellent, Jeff Beeler. This seems to have taken a long time. I got mine in I don't know, it's been quite a while. Perigi, tune in for the next one. It's kind of what we did last night was kind of a live sale. And the way it worked is I would go through the stuff and we ate up like a third of the show with that. And then people emailed me and those were the prices, and that's it. The prices were, I felt, very reasonable in at least most cases. Apparently they were a little high on Fornovo and the old Pacific War, but it's the Victory Games Pacific War. I figure at this point, most people who are into that are probably in possession of the GMT new version already. We will do another one. I don't know if Dan's going to do it the same way I did. I do it the way that works for me. That might not work for Dan, but we will find out next Sunday. So there will be the opportunity to bid on the Chit Show. So there you go. Neil Badke. Yeah, send me an email. And I'll send you the info on that. Easter Sunday. Shit, I didn't even think of that. That's true. It is Easter Sunday. I don't think it's going to be a problem because it's at night. I might be wrong. It is 1,000,000 degrees in here already. I'm going to open this door. It's really all the hot air that something's putting out in this room. I'm not sure if it's anything other or more complicated than that. So I didn't look at Constant Marketplace for reference. I looked at Noble Knight and BGG, and with the exception of one game that Noble Knight didn't happen to have, I forget which one that was, I told everybody what Noble Knight wanted for it and what the latest price on BGG was. So I figure people buying games ought to go into that situation knowing as much information as I can reasonably pass along in the amount of time that I had available. And in retrospect, I could have taken more time because it only took me 20 minutes because I talk pretty fast. So, all right. So, Vicky, thanks for stopping by. And Dan's got a tooth, has had like a tooth pulled or something like that. So he's in not amazing condition today. So, and we will probably do that again at some point. I mean, but I'm doing one and Dan's doing one. We'll probably do some more at some point. So I do have a piece of other news, which I will share right now. This is from Multiman Publishing, and it is an important announcement regarding their printing schedule. I will just read it. It's not that long. As you may know, we had plans to ship some of our printing services to China in order to reduce costs and produce games at more affordable prices, but due to the tariff, I'm paraphrasing slightly, due to the tariff situation, we've had to pause those plans. For now, they will continue to print in the United States, and for the immediate future, they will focus more, although not exclusively, on lower-priced items that are less expensive to print, but at least one game currently on pre-order is affected. That game is Inflection Point, the next game in the BCS series. I have already ordered it. So I am clear on this particular notification. So here's the thing. Effective on Monday, April 21st, MMP will increase the retail price of the game to $112, which will adjust the pre-order price to $84. So all pre-orders that are put in prior to April 21st will get the lower pre-order price of $63. Everybody after that will go in at $84. So if you're going to pre-order Inflection Point, and if you're into East Front and you like BCS, or you haven't tried BCS, I think it's really good. So now would be the time. So bear that in mind. Where am I at here? Other games that they said they intend to start the printing process for Inflection Point shortly. Other games that have met their pre-order number will be examined on a case-by-case basis, and they'll keep us up to date on whatever happens with this situation, which is, we talked about this a very little bit last night, and the short version of that is, I don't feel like I'm qualified to have any kind of serious discussion on the current tariff situation and confusion thereof. So if we can maybe get somebody on who can talk about it, we might talk about it, but probably not on this show, since it is my general position that I don't normally like to have folks. I like to have guests on this show. The Chit Show is for guests. Carl Fung, thanks for stopping by. I have never used the wish list function on either GMT's website or MMP's website, to be completely honest. So I have no idea. I guess the P500 tracker, which is an independent thing, it's not GMT's, is also down. I don't know if they're related or what. So I guess Worthington just canceled a Kickstarter. I may have heard about that. I'm not sure. So Dave, I don't know, to be completely honest. I mean, I think Hero City is pretty far along. I don't know that it's ready to like go on pre-order, but we might still see it soonish. I don't know. And nobody knows what is going to be the situation in a week, much less a couple of months. So I don't think there's well, this is true too. There are places you can go to get what's going on, to get the news on what's going on with this. This is not that place. So, all right. So Carl says it means nothing for games not on pre-order because those haven't been priced out yet, which makes complete sense. I mean, they're not going to. I feel, and Carl can, or anybody else, Pete's here, he can correct me too if I'm wrong. I would assume that the manner in which MMP sets the price, which includes the pre-order price, reflects what they expect to be paying. So it presumably reflects the quote from the printers, right? So I would think that's just kind of a basic business practice. And while I have no internal insight on how MMP does things, that's probably a fairly good bet. So, all right. Let me see. What else do we got? I did. Well, so Kickstarters are potentially going to get moaned by this. I got an email update, and I posted this publicly too, from John Nephew, who runs Atlas Games, on the Ars Magica Kickstarter that happened at some point in the second half of 2024. And they anticipate that a lot of the stuff that's in the Kickstarter, the various bits and bobs and stuff, can be obtained here in the U.S. domestically, but that the book itself is probably still going to need to get printed in China and may, in fact, already be, with a printer over there. So apparently Atlas Games is going to handle that by modifying the number of extra copies over and above the pre-orders in the Kickstarters. It's still possible to pre-order that. I got the biggest package, but not like with all the extra books, because I have all the extra books. So, all right. Brant, thanks for stopping by. All right, Tony Mammal, DVG had a few Kickstarters lately, but he wishes they would just cancel the whole lot. It would just end up better for everyone. I have no visibility on what DVG might be doing or what they might not be doing. I don't really monitor DVG very closely. I hear things, but I am not going out of my way to monitor their particular product lines. Honestly, that's just a preference thing. They tend to do a lot of solitaire games, and I am generally not that interested in solitaire games. So, not that I have none. I have a couple, I have more than a couple. But we got rid of a couple of good ones last night. Target for tonight, Target for today. One of which is already out the door. So, I think I did hear this. They canceled a Kickstarter that had not completed yet. I'm sure it would have funded. So, well, that's going to suck. I would be, I don't back that many crowdfunding projects, okay? I probably backed more in 2024 than I have ever done previously. And that's thanks to a couple RPG Kickstarters that I backed where is this going? that I backed that I might not have backed otherwise and probably regret slightly backing them now. But I think there's only 2 of those, 3 of those, one of which is the Ars Magica thing. So I don't know that I'm going to get boned too bad, but I would expect, I mean, the prices are going to go up, right? I mean, we can't help that. We don't have any control over that. We can only control how our money gets spent to the extent that we can. And this is the kind of thing where you can. It's, these are luxury goods, right? Let's face it. These are first world problems that my Ars Magica might be $10 more, right? All right. I think this is the honorable thing to do. Flying Pig has said they will not collect more for stuff that has already been paid for, like Rock of Chickamauga. That might put the company in a serious bind, depending on how the numbers shake out. I don't know. So, all right. James Whitmore backed First Victories and is still waiting for delivery. Canada Post says it's on the way. I can tell you that other people have gotten theirs. I've got it. Some other people that I've seen that aren't like, Lock and Load was kind enough to send me one. You will see video on it. But I think like actual people that bought the thing are starting to get their stuff as well. However, given, some situations we've seen with Canada Post, sometimes there have been lengthy delays. I think Jeff Beeler's copy of Mark Herman's book was one of those items, for example. So, well, this is kind of where I'm at, right? We're in a bit of a pinch at the moment over here. So I will be cutting back on some gaming purchases. But that doesn't mean they will go to 0. So unless something absolutely idiotic happens, I will end up backing the latest Mongoose Traveler Kickstarter. So, and I don't know, because those tend to be the best way to get that material for anything that they put on Kickstarter by like a lot. The Deep Night Revelation campaign, for example, is like 2 or 3 times as much to just buy the books individually now. You can get them all as it was to buy them through the Kickstarter. And, maybe that was a boo-boo. I don't know, but you never know. All right. Eric Burden says DVG Kickstarters are great until you realize how much stuff that's included. He got the Stuka Leader Kickstarter and still have barely touched much of it. There's just, yeah, that's true. I mean, they have done, historically, they've done a really nice job with, same with Lock and Load, has done a really nice job with Kickstarters with like a lot of extra stuff that maybe you can't get afterwards. So Danny Seckery asks, but is an RPG a book? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how that ends up working out. They are often sold in the form of books, but not always, right? Wargame Ramble says, I think a lot of publishers aren't going to be able to make the sort of promise Flying Pig made. They simply won't have the cash. This is my expectation. I think that if Flying Pig is able to make that call, I think it's the right thing to do, but a company can't necessarily do the right thing if they cannot afford to do the right thing, and this right thing will cost money, we think. So I think Wargame Ramble is right about this. I think that we will see some companies that have to raise prices on certain things. I think that will happen. Now, how many of us will that affect? I don't know. So... Books and well, yeah, this is, but Mark, they might change this in 10 minutes. Nobody knows. That's the thing. Right now, this is what it looks like, but nobody knows what's happening. So, and Grant from Pushing Cardboard did a video with a couple of people, including David Heath, about the tariff situation. Liz Davidson just released a show on Beyond Solitaire with Jason Matthews talking about it, and Jason knows what he's talking about too. If you know what Jason does, he actually is kind of keyed into the situation, and I'm not talking about his connections inside the gaming hobby or publishing industry, as it were. John C. from the sunny Philippines, thanks for stopping by. Well, I did get a chuckle when they made this decision, and then immediately it started sounding like a not that great of an idea. So that's going to happen. I'm not really blaming anybody at Multiman. If this means prices have to go up, prices have to go up. And maybe that means I skip something that I wasn't going to skip before. It won't be inflection point, however. So, All right, so I will let folks do their own research on their tariff situation. There are resources. I just don't consider myself well informed enough to talk about it. And anything I say, even if I was right, could be totally different tomorrow. So, pretty sure Fort Circle's printing in China, but I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it's offshore. But again, I don't know that for sure. And my Fort Circle games are out in the other room, so I can't go check. So. Yeah, I mean, you guys MMP announced this at some point in 2024. I want to say sometime late summer or fall or something like that. So this is a thing they've been thinking about, and it just, turns out it's not going to work out right now. That's all. So John Madison says, Perun on YouTube does a nice hour-long summary of the tariffs, well explained, but already out of date. Yeah, exactly. Achilles, thanks so much for the support. It is much appreciated. I do know that I do expect this to be pretty soon. I think maybe because I keep giving him guff about it, that Fabrizio will start to release games not in the final week of December or the first week of January. That would be great, just because it simplifies my life. Nobody else actually cares about that, but I would expect this to be pretty soon. I know they are working on it. I would be pretty surprised if we haven't seen the actual, whatever we want to call their release announcements within the next couple of months. I think that's when we'll see it. I don't have any real information, though. Fabrizio has been known to stop by this show, however. Well, there's a board game category. I know this because I had to deal with this today. There's a board gaming category for harmonized codes for customs purposes. So I can tell you that. So they are, I lost track of where I was here. All right. So they are considered different from books. Let me put it that way. Brant says that that Fourth Circle put a Kickstarter update out today that says they're printing everything in China. How that will affect them, I have no idea. I know they've had they got a couple things to deliver, but that's about it. I'm not sure. All right, so there's a couple things here. First of all, stacking limit. Avalanche Press is publishing all their games as books now. I'm not sure this is a policy, but this does seem to be how things are actually getting done now. I'm not sure if it was like a decision or it's just that's what they had in the pipeline. John Weeble, thanks for stopping by. Said, number one, go out of your way to buy from your friendly local game store. I'm in full support of this. Support your besties companies by purchasing a game you were only thinking about. Maybe direct from the company, but I like to support the local game store too. We have a store here in the Akron area. There's a couple, but the closest one is called Nine Realms Gaming, I think. And it's a pretty nice little store. They're mostly a comic store, but they've got some games too, including a couple of GMT products and some RPG stuff. Not a lot of RPG stuff, but they have a little bit. So when I picked up Pathfinder books recently, I bought them from them rather than getting them from Amazon. I could save a couple dollars buying them from Amazon, but I felt like it wasn't that much, and I would just as soon support the local game store. So anyway, I mean, there are war games being published as books. The stuff Avalanche is doing tends to be more like scenario books, but like Mike Lambo, for example, has like his own little mini industry of solitaire war games that are published as print-on-demand, I think, books through Amazon directly. And Mike Lambo seems to be doing pretty well with them, judging from the number of them that are available. And I know a bunch of people that have a bunch of those, too. So Worthington has done a book game. Not sure I'd call it a war game. It's like space exploration or something like that, that I would actually like to pick up. All right, so Paris Parapolis says that Ad Hoc Editions ships their game from France as documents, box unassembled. I think I've heard of this, actually. I think I've heard that they may not be the only one doing that, or having done that in the past. Let's see. I'm skipping the tariff stuff at this point, folks, because feel free, as long as it doesn't get political, I don't really care what goes on in the chat, or acrimonious. I don't want that either. But I think I've said everything I can say, other than I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. So, yeah, this is true. Mike Lambo, the mounted counters. Brant's talking about Mike Lambo, Historic Wings, Art of Wargaming, and a few others are selling games. Yeah, there you go. So there you go. All right, and it's going to be complicated too, right? Let's assume that I am a world-renowned expert on the subject of. I guess I'm pretending on the subject of tariffs. I could explain if that were the case. I could explain to you all of the important ramifications of the current situation, as dynamic as it is. That discussion would not fit on an index card. Okay, I could do it. Such a hypothetical person could do an hour or 2 hour show on it. So, but this is not that show. Okay, so Stacking Limit says it is pretty much policy. So what about the box D type of things that they have on that they've been working on for years? Will they do those as box sets? Because the boxes are themselves, at least this has historically been the case. I don't know what the details are now. Where the box has been the most expensive single piece of stuff that you get, right? Boxes are expensive. So John Mogg says that Lambo has games on Wargame Vault as well, which makes total sense. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. Print them in PDF and then just print what you need and work out of the PDF of the rules and stuff. I think that would work. I have not personally experienced any of the Mike Lambo stuff, so I don't know, but it sounds like it would work. So shop local if you can. I think that's a good idea. All right. In any case, let us have I gotten all the other stuff out of the way? I believe I have. All right, so let's transition into tonight's topic. After only 26 minutes, we're doing better with this, but I've tended to blow through the topical discussion quickly too in the last couple of months, and then we end up with a dangling 40 minutes at the end of the show. So that might happen tonight. We will see. So, as I think a lot of people know who've been around this show for a while, and as I've said, I got out of wargaming pretty much around the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, okay? And this was not a decision driven by, I don't want to play war games anymore. This was driven by, I don't have anybody to play war games with anymore, right? Because my friends had either got married, got no time, moved somewhere else in the country, dropped wargaming for another hobby that is very time-consuming and expensive, more so than wargaming. Dropped stone dead at age 28. So I kind of ran out of wargamers, right? Now I knew there's ASL going on, right? That's kind of why I started getting back in, which happened around, I want to say around 2012, sounds approximately right. I started getting interested again, oddly enough, taking history classes at Ohio State. So I guess that's not hugely surprising. I did some pretty interesting classes, actually. I don't want to particularly talk about the specific classes because I've done that before. But that's what kind of sparked my interest again. And it was, interestingly, Napoleonics that I was specifically interested in. So I picked up a couple of books on the Napoleonic period, and I had a pretty good idea of what to get because I had written papers on it. I wrote a paper on Waterloo, for example, that actually, I've said this before, cited an article in some medical journal speculating about the severity of Napoleon's hemorrhoids on that day. So, but that was not one of the ones I picked up. But like Chandler's Campaigns of Napoleon, man, that source is gold. If you want like a high level overview of all of the Napoleonic campaigns. Now, I didn't ever get rid of, let's see here. Let's leave it right here for now. I got rid of a bunch of stuff, but I didn't get rid of everything. I want to say I kept somewhere between 10 and 15 games, including a couple of Avalon Hill games and a couple of GMT games. And I'm trying to think if I kept anything from Multi-Man. I don't think so. It would have been the Gamers at the time when I made that call. I think I got rid of all that stuff, and I did have a few things, not that much. I know I had Guderian's Blitzkrieg, the first one, and Enemy at the Gates. And I think at least one I had. GD40, I think, was the TCS game that I had. But I had a couple of the original Avalon Hill Great Campaigns of the American Civil War games. I think I had Roads to Gettysburg and Stonewall Jackson's Way, I think, were the two that I had, and those went for nice change at the time too. But then, a decade or so later, I end up deciding I need to get back into this, and finding, to my surprise, that there's a lot more wargaming community left hanging around than I expected there to be. Now, we had already kind of seen the Euros kind of roll into North America, and there be a bit of a pickup in terms of analog gaming and all that stuff at that time. But we have been seeing more of that over the last couple of years. All right, Eric Burden asks, it wonders how many of us have enough games unplayed that it would take over 4 years to play them all. I absolutely do, at any pace that I've actually managed to maintain for any length of time. Very good, Brant. Thank you. It's a little big, because the person that bought it for me thinks I'm fatter than I actually am. All right. Well, they've got Compass has a bunch of new designs too in the pipeline. It's just that there's not, there are still a lot of the reprints. And I kind of felt like when John left, maybe the steam was going to go out of that effort, and that doesn't appear to have happened, which is good. I am happy that has occurred. Eric Burden mentions that he has enough ASL and scenarios to let. Yeah, me too, to be honest about it. I don't have anything like everything. I've just got my thing for ASL is I'm very selective about the historical modules, but if it's a core module, I'm probably going to buy it. So I have all of the core modules, including Twilight of the Reich, which I think is probably the least necessary one. Kyle Harris, thanks for stopping by. Bagged games too. I guess we should think about anything that doesn't come in a box, right? They tend to be a challenge to store, right? We talked about this on the Chit Show when we had Meandering Mike on, where you're gonna probably put, rather than slipping a counter, you got a magazine game, for example, and you punched and clipped it and played it, and you think, hey, this is good, I might play this again. So you store it. Well, how do you store it, right? You can put it in a magazine bag and throw the counters in little baggies, and that will work. But if you have a bunch of those, then the baggies at the bottom will bulge, and you won't be able to fit that many games in whatever storage receptacle you've chosen. So that's one reason why I tend to try to box magazine games together, at least where I think I can do that in some kind of thematically meaningful way. Sometimes it doesn't work, and they are, in fact, random. Wargame Ramble got back in around 2012 as well. An offhand purchase of Victorious Cross 2 at Cool Stuff at Gen Con sent him down the rabbit hole. I remember when Cool Stuff used to sell war games. I used to buy war games from them because they sold MMP stuff, and nobody else did at the time. Now I just go through, I mean, if I'm going to go through a online retailer, it's going to be Noble Knight. So at this point, or I have found a deal, what I think is a deal somewhere. I bought a decent amount of stuff over the last 2 years on eBay too. But I was also fairly stingy and had to wait for quite a long time. Perfidious Albion, loudest concert ever attended was The Who. There was the, and then you heard Lemmy. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. If I did a Waterloo game, I might be tempted to put in a Napoleon's hemorrhoids rule, and I would actually put that medical journal article in the in the bibliography too. All right, so John says, I've amassed the collection I have only since 2012 for the most part. Yeah, mostly, to be honest. I got rid of 100% of SPI stuff went away. And I didn't have that much SPI stuff before. I have a lot more now. But a lot of that is you go to a convention and somebody's got a bag of old S&Ts. They want a couple bucks a piece for them, and you walk out with 5 S&Ts for 10 or 15 bucks. I have taken advantage of that numerous times. I'm not sure what's up with the Compass thing where they don't want you to sell your own games anymore. Apparently at Compass Expo, that is. I don't know. I mean, allegedly it's a space concern, but I'm not sure. I think that is a solvable problem if that's the case. Let me put it that way. But I don't know. All right. Vince Ree, just a collection after grad school and didn't pick up gaming again until 7 or 8 years ago. So, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, remember when I was in school, the third time, back at Ohio State, when I returned at like age 44 or whatever it was, I was working full time too, and I was carrying a full time schedule. It was rough. I didn't have time to game. And in that 4.5 years, it took 4.5 years. I basically lost a semester because they changed 2 semesters while I was there. That was inconvenient. But the I lost where I was again. Jeez. But I was not gaming during that time, and I actually had just started before I went back to school. Now at this point, I am not back into wargaming. I'm an RPG guy, but I got some war games that I'd kind of like to play at some point, right? I had a group that I had played with intermittently, and I'm still friends with all those folks. They're all in Columbus. And I had another group that I had put together because I was running D&D 3.5, running the Age of Worms campaign. I think we got about 4 sessions in before I cannot do this anymore. I do not have the time. So I was pretty much out of gaming completely for those 4 years. I still kind of paid attention. I still probably bought a few things, but not that much. Captain Nolan says, I look fatter on YouTube than I likely look in real life. That might be true. What I can tell you is that my beard looks bad on camera. It looks slightly better in real life than it does on camera for whatever reason. That's probably got to do with this lighting I've got up here. All right. Yeah, you can buy boxes from GMT. And in fact, I have repurposed I had 4 empty GMT 3-inch boxes that I picked up in one of the sales. I forget which one. And those have just been repurposed to store Pathfinder pawns because those are friggin' incredibly difficult to store. Now, the cube for me... Hold on. I can do better than merely talking about the new cube for me trays. All right, so Cube for Me has new trays, and I forget what they're calling these exactly. And they are a very interesting design, and I'm still kind of scratching my head about what to do with them. Now, like their regular trays, I have a very high opinion of because they come in a variety of different sizes and depths and stuff like that. You can really do a lot to customize your storage solution. However, these new trays are interesting, and they are designed to, you do not stack the counters in these trays. You put them in like this, and then you slide them out somehow, or get them out with tweezers or something. Like I said, I'm still kind of scratching my head about them. And you can get a lot. This seems inefficient, but the counter tray is extremely thin. It's actually thinner than the regular lids. There's no lid here. You stack the trays like this, and you could get a lot of counters in this many of these trays. I think they sent me 10 of them. Thank you, Cube for Me. And I haven't got the video done yet. I think they sent me 11. Like I said, I think for certain types of games, I think this is going to be a really good solution. You will need to throw a lid on top, and then probably they don't lock together either, so you'll need to store them with a rubber band. It's an unusual configuration. I am very curious to see what people do with it, other than what Cube for Me planned them to do with it. I think it's got a lot of potential. They do have them in a couple of different counter sizes too, so they have them for like 5/8 inch counters as well. So, excellent, Mike. Thanks. That's long overdue, to be completely honest. Mike's got a good channel. People should follow Mike. Hard plastic envelopes and milk crates. I've also seen those little like folio cases, the hard ones, and I got a couple of those. I bought like a pack of those off of Amazon, and the only thing I have put in that is GTS, the GTS magazine game. That SAR game. So I'm not sure how viable that is. I think I like the mailing box solution a little better. So this exact same Wargame Ramble says at Gen Con, people rarely bought the war games at Cool Stuff, so by Sunday they were on clearance. You got the Greatest Day and Last Chance for Victory for $50 a piece. That Last Chance for Victory sounded like a great deal. Now, I haven't been to Gen Con since it moved to Indy, but they used to come to Origins too, and they used to have war games. And you are absolutely right. Most of the war games would be on a decent discount by the end of the show, sometimes even by Saturday. And they don't even come to Origins anymore. I don't think they were there last year. Brant will correct me if I'm wrong about that though. But they don't really carry games anymore. They just carry cards, as far as I can tell. At least 2 conventions, but they don't have war games at all anymore. And their selection of RPG stuff includes almost nothing I would buy or play or run or anything like that. So John C. left Wargaming when he started college in 1983 and returned in 2010 after playing Twilight Struggle and Labyrinth at a board game night. That's great. I think this experience, John, might be more common than somebody who is completely not into war games, and who plays Labyrinth or Twilight Struggle or something like that. Somebody who played war games before, and then however many years it was later, got into a game of Twilight Struggle or Labyrinth or Coin or whatever, and decided, hey, this is still pretty viable. Let's start doing this again, right? Eric Burden says, as far as ASL products go, he only buys MMP and HASLs he's interested in, and the core module scenario packs and the journals. No third-party stuff. I made the call to not buy third-party stuff, just because I don't want to. There's an immense amount of it. I am never going to have a complete collection of ASL product, and what I have already is I have more than enough ASL scenarios to play 2 a week until I'm 10 years in the ground. So I just knocked my water bottle over. It will be fine. We did spill a little bit, but it's fine. It's not a big spill. And space would be a problem too. Now I happen to have this nook here for ASL stuff. You've probably seen the pictures of it, so that's kind of nice. And I could make some room in there, but that's literally the project for the year is to organize the ASL stuff so I can actually fucking play it again. That'd be cool. So the magazine trays, I'm not sure if we're talking about Cube for me here, because that'd be something I've not seen, but the Aegis trays for magazines are pretty cool. Hilariously, however, the games I have put in the Aegis magazine trays are the campaigns in Europe games, and those can go in the expansion set box. So I'm going to end up pulling those out of that game. Mike will be doing a live stream to celebrate. Check that out when Mike goes live. All right, so Paul Sin only gets select third-party ASL stuff, which is sensible. I mean, some of the third-party stuff is good. Some of it's not, but some of it is. All right, so Scott Bell was sort of out in the 90s, so they never got rid of Avalon Hill and Victory Games. I never had a lot of things from Victory Games. I had a couple of things, and those went away when the rest of the stuff went away. And now I have more stuff from Victory Games than I've ever had before. But 2 of those things were in the pile last night because I don't need doubles of them. All right, Christophe de Klerk is talking about the Belgian techno discotheques. I have no idea. Manowar I find totally believable. John Madison, in his time, 2 major systems he's played for years but sold, Europa and OCS. And has no regrets. You just sold your OCS stuff, too. The oddest band I've ever heard, I mean, I'm guessing. It could have been Rush, could have been Kiss. I don't know. Eric Burden got out of wargaming in the 90s, got back into it in 2012. It sounds like a lot of us got back in around that 2012 plus or minus a year time frame, because it was me and Kyle and some other people as well. Throughout. No, this is fair, actually. If you had like a ton of missing pieces and didn't want to deal with that, yeah, you can still play them on Vassal, no problem. Jeff says it's easier to find players in University Town. That was definitely true for RPGs in Columbus. It was very easy to find an RPG group, especially if you were playing something that was popular. Wargaming was a little harder. You kind of had to find people or go to cabs meetings when there was still, which at the time there was still Wargaming happening there. But Eric says he still has most of his Avalon Hill games, but rarely plays them. The new games are made so much better. MMP and GMT are making great titles, among others. Sure, absolutely. Cube for Me, I really like the Cube for Me trace. I think so. Not everybody might have the ability. This gift. I've got a buddy who lives about 20 minutes away, and who's one of my old time gaming buddies, who was one of the guys who got out of wargaming to go do World War II reenactment because he ain't got time to wargame. Well, now he's old and busted, so he has more time to get back into wargames. And he has also decided that he would prefer to store all his games in baggies. So basically, every time he goes through a game and puts everything in baggies, I get the GMT counter trays, or whoever counter trays, but most of them are in fact GMT counter trays. So I kind of have a lot of GMT counter trays at this point. He's probably given me at least 30 of them. Plus a couple oddball trays from like Victory Games or like the later Avalon Hill trays or the Chessex tray, whatever. But he doesn't have any Cube for Me trays. So if I am buying counter trays now, I'm probably buying the Cube for Me ones. The Aegis ones are nice too, especially those magazine trays. I think those have just tons of potential. Oh, so they have a separate, but I think the lid is just another one of these, right? Maybe that's not true. And they actually sell these big rubber bands that you could put around them so that they don't fly all over the place. James Whitmer went to a KISS concert where he was so close to the stage that he felt the heat when Gene Simmons did his fire act. That sounds kind of cool. I was up in the rafters, to be completely honest. The ones they sent me, Jonathan, are for 1/2-inch counters, but they do make a 5/8-inch counter as well. And yes, they still sell their regular trays. Jeff Beeler says that hair ties are better than rubber bands. The problem is that there's always little tangles of hair in the ones I have here in the house. All right, Eric Burton only owns 2 SPI games, Kursk in the box. I'm not sure I've ever seen Kursk in a flat, and War of the Ring in the flat. War of the Ring's pretty cool. It is flatly not as good a game as the modern War of the Ring, but it isn't, at least to me, it's a more interesting game than the modern War of the Ring. I would not expect most people to play it more than the War of the Ring that we have now, which is a very nice game, and which I got the second edition of it at some point last year. Nacho Cheese says, Last Chance for Victory is a masterpiece, and I am inclined to agree. Profini Selby says, love the mailboxes, just need the thin, large enough format to accommodate the maps and material, mostly for magazine games. Yeah, so I can usually get at least 3 and usually 4, maybe even 5, depending on how big they are, magazine games in one of those trays. That includes 2 GMT counter trays plus whatever else they have. Now, like some of the bigger, like when Decision redid Cobra in the magazine, that was like a triple size, at least double sized game. Like that would be problematic, or some of the ones from Against the Odds. And I have a couple of the big ones from Against the Odds as well. Yeah, pretty much. And you know what? I can't blame, if they decided that that's the right business decision to make, then all right. But they did lose me as a customer because they no longer sell games that I want to buy. So Greatest Day for $50. That always goes up. People are terrified by the prices on the Greatest Day. Which I've got bad news on the Greatest Day in a minute here. So a lot of people get scared off by that like $250 price tag on the first one, Gold, Juno, and Sword, and Utah is just as expensive, so if not more. So a lot of people are terrified by that price, but they're always on sale whenever they have a sale, at least until they're all gone. Now, they're, as far as I know, they're not yet, but I haven't checked that. I've got the thing. So we played The Greatest Day Utah Beach, if you'll recall, at Winterfest. So my copy, which at some point during Winterfest, the playbook, or the game-specific rule book somehow vanished. That copy got boxed back up. It's fully punched. It's ready to go and all that. And it was sitting in the backseat of the car, and somebody left the car window open, and it rained. The box got pretty badly wet. It's a mess. The innards are all fine. So it's unfortunate, but it's not a big deal, and there will not be a big fuss about it. I'd rather it not have happened, but at least the game itself is fine, and I can print out a new copy of the game-specific rules if I need to. Iggy Creek Tall, like I said, my preferred way is with those cardboard magazine or literature mailers. You get them on Amazon, you buy them in like a pack of 50, and it's like, I don't know, $80 or something like that. And so you kind of got to buy a lot of them, but it will also be a lifetime supply of them. So I have not gotten to that stage with a lot of my magazine games yet, but that's the goal, is to eventually do that. So, hey, gateway games happen too, right? All right. Eric Burden says, cool stuff has become a sorry site to look for anything unless you enjoy card games. They had a total change of direction during COVID. The cool stuff change happened pre-COVID, actually. You might have seen that as the time when they completely got out of everything else, but they were moving in that direction even before that, to be honest. Vince Reese says, Ziplocs and magazine boxes are the way to go, unless you have multiple games in a series or such, in which case you could store them in a GMT white box. Yeah, so if I had, these were the first magazine games that I did like this. This has turned into storage solutions. Well, at least we got some talk about getting back into wargaming. I had that was my water treatment system, if you heard that. I had the 3 Victory in the West games that S&T did that SPI did in S&T. And I boxed those together as their own package like that. And that's what kind of got me started on that. I'm like, that's a great way to store this. I can get 4 games in the space that it would take to store 1 game otherwise. So I might as well keep doing this. So I did a few more. I did all the Blind Swords. Well, I did all the Blind Swords stuff like that, and I have 2 Blind Swords boxes, but then we've had a bunch more Blind Swords games, and I haven't gotten back to it. And I printed out labels and all that stuff. I enjoy doing that kind of thing, so my next project might be a dice box, actually. I have scoured Michael's and Joanne Fabrics and Pat Catan's and crafts and hobby stores that don't even exist anymore. And I don't know that for most games, like a Wargame tray, whether you get it from Cube for Me or GMT or Aegis or whoever, most of the time those are better solutions. There are exceptions, like games that you can't store in a box, for example. I didn't have a lot of Victory games at the time. I kind of do now. I had a couple that passed through my hands. I had Cold War, for example, which is kind of one we didn't really grok at the time. I'd actually like to revisit it because I have it again now. There were Victory games that I wanted, including Pacific War, that I just never got a hand on until it became too late. And there were a couple. I think I had about 4 Victory games titles. Most of the stuff I had in that format was Avalon Hill stuff. So sorry, Mark. It took me extra time because I am slow. So, Brand says Kiss in Fayetteville was pretty loud. Skid Row, Pantera, no interest in them. Pantera's got a couple cool things, but I'm not a huge fan. The Europa magazine lasted 80 issues, which I think is really astonishing. It was if you're super into Europa, the Europa magazine was fabulous. Oh, look at this. Perigi, Wargame intro was Twilight Struggle and seeing a fellow fan of the Aubrey Maturin novels, which are great. I've only read the first 3. Post a picture of wooden ships and Iron Men. I knew he had to try it. You know what? That was a thing that I encountered at early on too. I was kind of already back in, but I would like see pictures of the Bounding Fire stuff. Does look really good. I would see pictures of cool stuff like PQ-17, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get that. And I managed to get a copy of PQ-17, and now I've actually played it. It's pretty cool. Eric Burton has never played a war game face to face. Nobody where he lives plays war games, and well, you know, unless you are literally up in the Yukon. And I guess I just found out that I don't remember who this is now. Some pop band is from the Yukon. I don't remember who that is, but unless you live somebody that's like genuinely remote, chances are that there are people somewhat local to you, and you just don't know who they are. Because wargamers tend to kind of mind their own business and do their own stuff. And I think that's true as often as not. The gateway for me to get back in was I had been in some of the stuff at Origins for a couple of years. In with the what was then Grogheads, what is now the Wargame HQ, run by the Armchair Dragoons. I had gotten in a couple of those and in a couple of Memoir 44 games, and I found, that happened that the second Memoir game was one of the people that was in the first Memoir game, and he said, hey, we're about to start playing Third World War at home. And I'm like, the GDW Third World War? And he's like, yeah. You want to play? Yeah. No kidding. I think it didn't end up being the first thing we played, I think, but it was a great success. So, and I was with that group for like 6 or 7 years until I just had to bail because of the work schedule change. And it doesn't really work for me to stay in Columbus that extra night. As far as I'm aware, they don't have magazine trays, but I wouldn't be shocked if they introduced such a product. Captain Nolan says, Siege of Jerusalem is still a very good game. I have heard that. Jeff Beeler says last Europa buy was Wable's War in the Ziploc, direct from the company before it left St. Clair, Michigan, which is right across the border, and went to wherever the hell they are now. I think somewhere in Colorado. I have Wable's War. I bought it after the fact on eBay. It is expensive, so. I mean, obviously this is true. Besides. The wife's hair ties are now firmly in the possession of the cats, so they are basically cat toys at this point. Brent was on the rail for Kiss in Fayetteville, but it was in the back of the Coliseum when he saw Kiss on the Makeup Reunion tour in 2000. That might have been the tour I saw them. That might have been. I don't remember the actual date, so I know who I was there with. I remember the show was good. Danny Secretary says, don't forget to smash that like button. The YouTube algorithm and me will both thank you. Uline sells fold up. So Uline is a great resource. However, the shipping will fucking ruin you unless you are ordering stuff in very large quantities and where it makes sense. If you are just a dude in Duluth buying stuff from Uline, you will pay a lot in shipping. That is my experience. Now, if you've got like a business connection that you can get stuff from Uline delivered to your work or something like that, that's a little different. I would advise not using your employer's funds for that. That is not recommended, but if you can buy from Uline, if you got a way to make it practical, then they basically have any size of those literature mailers you would like, a 1/2 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch. They may even have 5 inchers. John Longshore's favorite has always been SPI's War in Europe. So pre-quitting, I played War in Europe, and it's a great game. The thing from DG from Decision right now is really not that. I do think there's a good chance that Doc will elect to try and do a new War in Europe printing at some point. I do not have a update for. It reminds me, I do not have an update for the Noble Knight campaign for the revised version of War in Europe, but I will next week. I actually have the number. I just haven't like plugged the number into the spreadsheet yet. So, all right. What's tonight's topic again? Well, you know how that works. A lot of the chat talk is about loudness. Joe, who's big into magazine games, stores the counters of a Punch magazine game in a GMT tray, which he puts inside a 10x12 Ziploc bag together with the magazine rules and map. It stands firmly and looks great. I mean, this totally works. And I have put magazine games in counter trays before. Also, what I found out literally today when I started packing stuff up and I ran out of the big Ziploc bags to wrap stuff in, I'm fumbling around figuring other stuff out. And in the meantime, I look over at the 3D printing area and I'm like, huh. You know, I hung on to a bunch of those filament bags. They are Ziploc filament bags. They're very tough. They're probably difficult to open. So I ended up using those. And those would be perfect for to store magazine games in. So that totally works. Stacking limit never left. Good for you, but I did. I remember NWS too. I remember NWS. I got a bunch of stuff from it. Well, we had a bunch of stuff, but I ordered several times, probably at 5 to 10 times from NWS, and it took them an absolutely ridiculous amount of time to ship. A lot of the time, but not all the time. And then later on, I was left on the hook when he died. I had like just gotten a game from him, and I had kind of complained twice or 2 or 3 times. It's like, hey, you know, I paid for this 4 months ago. Any update on shipping? I'm not in a hurry, but I paid for it. I'd like to get it at some point. John Madison only has 22 war games. That sounds fantastic, but my issue with that is I would end up, you just sold a bunch of OCS stuff. I have sold OCS stuff and have rebought all the OCS stuff. So I'm reluctant to get rid of something that I have any level of affinity for at all. Unless there's no way I'm going to get to it. You do have to make calls at some point. Captain Nolan likes Cold War. Wargame Ramble has given up on counter trays. Tiny drug bags are all he needs. Even if he gets serious side-eye when buying heaps of them at Michael's. I actually buy those at Walmart instead. I bought the tiny ones by mistake. Do I have any handy? I have some. I'm not. Oh yeah, here they are. So these, when they're in the bags, this whole bag of like 100, however many is in here, is like $1.99 from Walmart. So when you're looking at them on the shelf, these look very similar. This is one bag. This is actually 2 bags, 2 very tiny bags. Now I have found uses for these, but not very many. And since I'm not into heroin, I don't really see me using the rest of these tiny bags. And I bought like a couple packs of them too. So I've kind of got way more of them than I need. There you go. It is new, not on the bingo card. Victor Games Carrier and Tokyo Express. I've never played Carrier and never owned it. I do now have Tokyo Express. Perfidious Albion uses Miniature Market and Game Neds. Never heard of them. I have ordered from Miniature Market in the past, though. Craig Alexander got into Wargaming in 1978, stayed there until 1986, got out until 1993, back in 1994 until 2000, so you've been in and out. I have not gone in and out. I mean, I went out and then back in, and then that's it. And I'm not leaving again. So NWS was good. There nowadays there is still a Gray Rooster, which has very good prices on the stuff that he carries, and who is actually local here in Ohio. So if I order something from them, I tend to get it extremely quickly. I'm going to complain for a moment about this particular counter mix from MNP, because the die cutting on these counters is not that great. This is like my 3rd consecutive sheet where the die has not gone all the way through the sheet, and I had to bust out the cutting mat and the X-Acto knife and cut everything out by hand. That's a pain in the ass. I'm not sure I've bought any games from Lou Zocchi. Remember, he was still, as far as I know, still has a bunch of old SPI stuff. But I did buy dice from him. I was never a huge fan of the Zocchi, like the Game Science dice. I have some specific ones that I like, but I was never like buying a bunch of Game Science dice. I generally like, when I was buying bulk dice, it was the Chessex dice. The best prices. I have no idea how that dude made any money. In fact, given the prices were only like a couple bucks over what his cost must have been. One of these days I do need to play Siege of Jerusalem, and I think that will happen. I don't own it, but I think that will happen. I've got friends who are interested enough that I think it will happen at some point. All right, so Christoph just met someone who also plays war games. He's a military guy in active service, and he's on a mission right now. This happens too, right? So one of the things that leads people to join the military is an interest in military stuff, and that might extend to war games. I mean, remember that it was considered completely normal for the non-wargaming producers of the final... Is it the Final Countdown? Yeah, the Final Countdown. I always get that mixed up when I say that title with the Philadelphia Experiment, which is... It's okay, but it's not the same movie. Where they're playing squad leader into mess on the aircraft carrier in the Final Countdown, which is cool if you spot it, right? There you go. You know what? I got friends that have retired that have less time now than they did before. So there's that. Jonathan Dyer found the group he's with now through the now defunct Nearby Gamers. There are other link-up services. Yeah, you can do that. You can run into people at conventions. Most places have a convention. I'm going to have to cut back on conventions, at least for the rest of this year. We'll see what next year looks like. Although it's my intention to cut back next year too, but maybe have a little more convention action. The only other convention I definitely will be going to this year, at least as of right now, is Origins. Probably not going to make it out to WBC, even for a day trip. And I am definitely, I think this point, a late year trip to either Compass Expo or SD Hist is probably not going to happen. I could be wrong, and I might adjust the plan, and you'll all know when I do, but or if I do. But it's not looking like it's viable at this point, just in terms of what's going on and the money and all that jazz. So. The one thing I might go to, and I haven't decided yet, is Con on the Cob, which is a local event up here. It's probably 20 to 25 minutes away. So it's, I would like to check it out, but they don't have like any events listed, so I have no idea what happens there. So I will wait until I have an event listing to actually look at before I make the decision, but it doesn't look like a humongous expense to go. I'll have to check for this, because I would be very interested in a Cube for Me magazine tray solution. Oof. John Longshore got out when his sister convinced his mom to sell all his games for $85 at a garage sale. Move out of your mother's basement at your own peril. Yeah, well, or take your shit with you. There's from Captain Nolan. Victory Game Civil War is a friggin' masterpiece, and I'm very much looking forward to it being redone someday. All right, we've got a Twitch spammer that we have to get rid of, and they've been lurking around for 8 minutes now, so let's take care of that. That's cool. Let's see. All right. Consider yourself reported, person. And blocked. There you go. All right. That's fixed. All right. Brian Lindsay was a dedicated young wargamer, 77 to 92. left the hobby due to friends moving. Yeah, same. Me too. It was like it wasn't like a decision to leave. It was it looked at the time to me like the hobby had left. Like there was like nobody left playing anything but ASL. That just turned out not to be the case. All right, so okay, so I don't know that this has been like announced, but he's talked about it publicly, so I think I can say it. It is Eric Lee Smith's intention to reprint Victory Games Civil War himself. That is the current plan as of like November. So that is actual information. So I got that from Eric himself. So, all right, we're trying to get caught up on the chat here, folks, and it's not going great. On the other hand, all the counters are clipped, so that's cool. That's what I call them, and my wife fucking hates it when I do that. Honey, I need some more of those heroin bags. She hates that kind of talk. Christoph de Klerk, hey, I think this is, well, I was about to congratulate you on your restraint, Christoph, and now that I'm thinking about it, in 10 years, you might be hosed. Thinking about it, if you've got, well, maybe not, so 10 years is 120 months. So if in 10 years you have 120 war games, that's a good number of war games, but I don't think it's insane. So if you can limit yourself to once a month, I think that sounds great. I did not limit myself to once a month. But to be fair, I got deals happening on the side and, trades and stuff like that. So it's, I'm kind of connected in that way. And I went to a lot of conventions where you can potentially at least get good deals on stuff. And you could tempt me with a good deal. I've got a whole pile of garbage on Steam that was $2 or $3 or something like that. It sounded like a great idea because it was $2 or $3 and I haven't touched it or even installed it. I do use the Ziploc snack bags for certain things as well. All right, Carl, thanks for stopping by. Just retired and has 3 different PBEM Grand Strategic World War II games, Goss, and a couple of others this time. That sounds great, man. I love Goss. I think it's a cool system, and I like Strategic World War II games, too. Little bag. What? Just go to Walmart, man. Oh, the tiny bags? Yeah, you could go get like 400 of these tiny bags for like $1.99 at Walmart. You have to go to the craft section. They will be there. CLS Games, I bought a couple of things from them too. I had a very good experience. I think I've only bought from them twice though. All right, I do refer to them as the heroin bags, to be honest. I think this is true, but still, Lou used to call Mark up and complain when Avalon Hill bought their dice at a cheaper source, which they did. Lou's dice were quality dice. So, do I happen to have one? I do happen to have one. This is not one of my favorites, but it is similar to one of my favorites, and it showed up in a thing I bought, and I bought another one. And I'm not sure you can really tell. So one of the reasons why, say, the Chessex dice have the rounded edges is because they put them in a tumbler. Lou never did that. The reason that Chessex put them in a tumbler is to remove the mold lines from the die and the little part where it was connected to the plastic sprue in the injection molding machine. Lou never did that. So sometimes you'd have very rough corners. I might even be able to find it, but I have to take the glasses off. Yeah, right. You're not going to be able to see this, but right here is where it was connected to the sprue. So there's like a little piece of damage, for lack of a better term there. And that's why I never really liked these dice in general, but there were a few specific clean ones that I had. This isn't one of them. That I did hang on to and still use. Those dice, I know exactly what game they came out of. They came out of Powers and Perils from Avalon Hill. World of War is a cool experience. I will agree with this. I've got some casino dice around here somewhere too. Well, if anybody would know the answer to this question, John, it would be Mark, and Mark says no. So there you go. All right, we're trying to get caught up. Yeah, me too. But, you know, it is what it is. It's just not going to happen. All right, so Wargame Ramble says, VG Civil War had the best on-map charts and trackers of any game ever. Yes, well, there was a lot of them. But it's real interesting to compare that game and its handling of the off-map trackers to... what's it called? It's the Franco-Prussian war game that uses the same system that Compass did, which is supposed to be decent. But they put like one big general records track on it, and having walked past that table, it seemed insanely cluttered. Am I going to be selling more games? Probably, but I have no particular timetable for that. Dan has expressed interest in doing a semi-regular, not necessarily semi-regular, but doing a game sale weeks on the Chit Show. So yeah, Dan's going to be selling a bunch of stuff next week, and I will have some stuff to sell sooner or later. I just don't have like a calendar entry on it yet. So I'm not sure what this is even referring to, but whatever. Panzer Command is a really interesting game. A very important game too, even though it doesn't seem to get talked about that much nowadays. Even GTS doesn't seem to get talked about that much, to be honest. Its spiritual descendant. That whole command point mechanism is lifted directly from Panzer Command into GTS. There you go, Fall Assembly with the Armchair Dragoons down in is it in Kerry again, Brant? I mean, this is true. The game does have its idiosyncrasies, but it is a great game. I like sales too, and I can be talked into buying something based on the fact that it's on sale. So, indeed you did, Mark. And Mark Simonich did too. That's one reason why that game works the way it does. But he admittedly, before the people preceded it, and was a specifically cited influence for Mark Simonich for the U.S. Civil War. SBI Quad Fest is still happening at Buckeye Game Fest. I'm not sure what is planned down at the Armchair Dragoons Fall Assembly yet. Air Assault on Crete, classic. I do. So I have a tendency. So the guard tower in Columbus, I was in there a couple of weeks ago looking for Pathfinder stuff, maybe a month ago, and they didn't have anything for me. But they do have this enormous drum of dice. That's just like you buy them by the cup, or you can buy individual dice. And if you buy them individually, they're a little more expensive, but they're still like 50 cents a die. And they're all the offcuts and stuff, mostly from Chessex. I went through that thing pretty thoroughly looking for things like pink dice or brown dice, and I did actually walk out with some pink and brown dice. D10s is what I was looking for. And a couple of odds and ends that I thought were just cool-looking dice. I think I spent a total of about $6. The dice, somebody brought these to Winterfest, John. I'm not sure if you saw them or not, or at least we were talking about them, the gravity dice. They are not cast, they are metal, and they are machined. And they go so far as to weight the pips. So the pips, because there's 6 pips on the 6, they're less deep than the 1 pip on the 1. The 1 pip on the 1 is real deep. The 6 pips on the 6 are not very deep at all. They're supposed to be perfectly balanced, and they are again called gravity dice. It's a very attractively produced game, John, but the errata situation in it makes it a mess. At any cost. No, at any cost was the Mets game. That's not the game I'm thinking of. I'm trying to remember what it was called. On to Paris. That was it. All right, so the Armchair Dragoons Fall Assembly is in Cary, but not at Gamers Armory. It's at their own location with better hours, so that's cool. That's why I told you, go to the craft section. You will find them in the craft aisle. Jeff Beeler, thanks so much for the support. It is much appreciated. I don't have them handy, or I'd be inclined to flash them. I do have some of the those old D&D dice that they started making in the 70s that are of a very soft plastic, and they tended to like wear down to almost perfect spheres in repeated use. I have some that are actually in pretty good condition. All right. It is 9:20, folks, and I am not that far behind on the chat, but I am actually, what I am behind on is the message from our sponsor of the Counterclipping Show, our friends at Noble Knight Games. So take it away, Noble Knight. I will catch up on the chat.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more. Going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at. Complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
Thank you, Noble Knight. All right, so John has enough D6s in different colors so that each faction, and here I stand, gets their own set of individually covered dice. I have done this as well. The brown dice for the Protestants were very difficult to find. I got mine from Luzaki. That's where I found brown D6s approximately the right size. They don't match the rest of the dice, which are all Cheswick's dice, but I can live with that. I did the same thing for the Napoleonic Wars, too, and I probably overdid it. I probably put too many dice in there. John's talking about these old D20s. This used to be a regular D10, okay? Was a D20 numbered 0 to 9 twice. I do still have some. Somebody still makes them. I forget who that is. You don't see them very often. No, I take it back. I do know who's making them. Matt Colville, MCDM, is doing a dice set for their RPG that they're doing, and their game uses D10s, and in their dice set, the D10s are 20-sided, numbered either 0 to 9 or 1 to 10 twice. Matt thought that was cool, apparently. So those are coming back. I still have some of those. These game science dice I had to color the numbers in. I tried paint markers. I expected that to work better. It really didn't. And on some of the molds too, it feels like the numbers are really shallow, and that creates issues when you try to color them in. At least with the traditional way to do it was with a crayon, which worked fine actually. And I tried paint markers, but that didn't work that well. And I did wash the dice with soapy water first so that it would remove any mold release compound that was on it. So you'd be shocked at the stupid shit that I don't remember, John. The average everyday stuff. Like the thing that my wife told me to do right before the show. I don't know what it was now. So, oh God. I wish I could, I could probably talk about dice for an hour, maybe. I think we might have. I used to keep the dice in this giant hardware cabinet that was, all right, so I'm gonna pull a game box out of here. This thing was designed to hold like nuts and bolts and stuff. I still have it. It just doesn't hold dice anymore. It's about as wide here as the Beyond Valor box, and it's about as deep as the Beyond Valor box, like back, but it's about 3 feet tall, and it's got like 10 drawers in it, which are. The whole thing is metal. Each drawer has like a plastic insert with adjustable dividers. And I'm still using that thing nowadays, although it is now holding nuts and bolts like it was originally designed to hold instead of dice. But there's still some dice in it because I didn't have room for all the dice. So, indeed she will. That is okay. I'm not painting my fucking dice. There's no way I'm doing that. Like putting primer on the dice, that'll just wear off, right? If I can't read the dice, I mean, visibility is important to me nowadays. I don't buy dice without good contrast. If I can't read them, fuck them. They're off the table. And I will yell at people about using dice that nobody can read. This is an interesting idea. I've got one of those, like, it looks like one of those old-fashioned candy. Well, this is right here. I can grab it. Of course, I emptied it. So I got one of these things. This came from, I want to say, Dollar General or someplace like that. It is thin plastic, and it's flat on the bottom like this, and it's flat right here, so you can kind of store it like that. And I had the game room dice in here for like public use, and then I took them out, put them somewhere else, and now here they are. So I got a bottle of bourbon for Christmas, and it came in a sort of fancy wooden box with a clear plastic slide lid. So that is the general consumption dice box now. I missed something. Oh, yeah, okay. So this is about a house divided. So there you go. The Pop-O-Matic dice roller. I remember that. There are many occasions in which you get those spinners that you can get on Amazon now that I think everybody has seen at this point. So a couple things on those. I do like them. They're kind of cool. I brought mine to Winterfest a couple years ago, and we played on to Richmond with it. And we rolled dice so many times during the course of that game. It is a whole week that I literally wore the felt off the inside of the bottom. And I repeatedly stick my finger on the dome trying to spin it that way instead of pushing the actual button like a dope. So the memory of the Pop-O-Matic is strong, apparently. It was Booker's, actually. Now, I also have the... trying to remember who it is. The Tinderbox, a cigar store that I don't go into anymore, in Columbus. It's a chain, but they don't all do this. They're independently owned. Used to give away their cigar boxes, and I've got a bunch of those. And in fact, there's a big box of dice under the table that's a cigar box. And there's another cigar box I got from Camacho that I might end up turning into a dice box. I have literally designed the 3D printed inserts for it already. Sorry. I liked Sorry. All right, Jeff, this is hilarious, but please don't. That sounds hilarious. I will look into this after the show, but the show is not about that. So, anyway, Trouble. I remember Trouble. I liked Sorry because you got to bone people in Sorry, and that was fun. I've got about 5 or 6 dice towers, several of which I have made, and I think 4 of which I have bought. That sounds about right. I've got a cardboard one that I travel with. It's thick cardboard. It's pretty robust. Some of you have even seen it, and it's relatively compact. I've got a big wooden one that I made. Not out of nice wood. It was out of like hobby plywood, and that's doing great. And it's in the other room right now. I did have to replace the feet, however, which was irritating because I brought it to Winterfest actually, and we used it at Winterfest. It works great, but it's quite tall. It's not a good travel dice tower. And I bought one of those laser cut dice towers from somebody at Origins, and it's like mostly assembled because it has like 1 million actual pieces. I'll be completely honest. I don't like metal dice. Plastic is fine. Plastic is fine. I don't need metal dice. Now, if I could get bone dice, that would be different. That might be cool. I do have a 3D printed dice tower, and it is available on the Patreon, actually. It's not a great design, though, to be honest. It's real heavy on filament, and I would redesign it now if I had the time. I like the folding dice towers are very good for travel. Yeah, shot glasses. That doesn't make no sense. I had this discussion with my wife about one of the whiskey glasses in the kitchen, and she's like, "We should put this in storage somewhere. You've never drunk anything out of this." And I was like, "That's my ASL glass. That doesn't belong here. What's that doing in here? I took it right downstairs." So amber dice could be cool too. I could see that. I mean, you can spend. Dice are one of those things you can spend as much as you want now. You want dice that are machined from meteoric fucking iron? You can buy those. They are expensive. No, thank you. We got a local guy that does dice towers in Central Ohio. Stigler. This is not different. It's not different. I combed it. That could be different. 80 is set. 80 is set. John, you haven't seen the ones that are like $1,000 a set. They're absolutely nutty. I don't know how they roll. I don't care. I'm not buying those. You can get metal dice sets for $30 too. You don't have to pay $1 million for them. And if you like metal dice, good for you. But I'm not going to let people roll metal dice on my dining room table. So I don't know about you. If you're downstairs in a game room and you got a dice tower or something like that, maybe it isn't a problem. It's not my preference. I'm willing to pay a certain premium for cool dice, but not like an excessive premium. I guess that's what I'll say. I'm pretty happy with my fancy dice tower from local Central Ohio guy, and I'm honestly pretty happy with the one I made out of hobby plywood. It's not stained, it's painted. I probably could have gotten away with it. In order to do it and have it look perfect, if I was going to stain it, I would have had to bevel the corners, and I didn't want to do that because part of the design was to make the absolute fewest number of cuts in the wood that I could get away with. And the reason for that is because I didn't have a power tool. I did everything with a little hobby saw. It sucked. That wood is quite hard, as it turns out. I've heard of Crowbar. Supposed to be a good game. Somebody got me one of these for Christmas one year, one of the D100 golf ball looking things. It is a novelty item. It is a novelty item. They have silicone dice too, made out of silicone, the same silicone you would get a spatula made out of, and they are super bouncy. It's absurd. They'll just boom right out of your tower. There's a dice catapult that you can bounce the dice off the dice catapult and hope that it lands in the tray. Absolutely not. I don't have that kind of time. There are dice catapults too. And again, it's a cute, and I have a dice catapult, admittedly, but it is a cute novelty, and I'm not using it for die rolling. Mine is, let's see if I can go grab it, because I know exactly where it is. So, local Central Ohio guy sold me this for something like $60. It is from an African wood called Wenge, which is not a sustainable wood, so there's that. It is gorgeous. He does bevel the edges, but one thing that he does is he uses the foam to line it instead of felt, and that is not my preference. So if at some point I have to replace this foam, it's getting replaced with felt. That is the only complaint I have about this otherwise gorgeous dice tower. And the guy that makes them, his name is Scott Polentius. S. Polentius. That's SPALENSHUS @gmail.com. So you can email him and get your own for a very reasonable price. He's got smaller ones too. He's got a bunch of different designs and a bunch of different woods. I don't think he's got a website though. He's just a dude with a wood shop. And it's a really nice dice tower. There will be no stickers put on this one. The big one that I made, it is painted U.S. Army green right now. I'm considering repainting it in black. All right, Dice Trebuchet could be pretty cool. I have not used... So, it's funny, Mark. I had to replace it already. It broke on the trip home. So... because I put it in my bag, they are fairly delicate. I still need a video of the dice Zamboni, however. I have replaced it, and there will be a video on it at some point. You probably saw the same short I did, and I've commented on it like, cool idea, but no, that's no, very impractical. You do not, no, see, that's different. That's completely different. I am counterclipping when I am not wargaming, right? The dice situation is likely to impede your ability to actually play the game while you are playing the game. That's actually problematic. I also clip over a box, so I generally don't have a ton of counter clippings list all over the place. Yeah, you're going to have to wait for the video on its stacking limit. It's pretty cool. I got to tell you, it will clean up your counter clippings for you. It is a tiny Zamboni for dice clipping, or for counter clipping. So, yeah, pretty much. I've always kind of been interested in woodworking, and on my my new miscellaneous YouTube channel that I watch stuff on that's not wargaming or RPG stuff or maybe science and technology stuff. I'm actually subscribed to a couple of woodworking channels. Bourbon Moth Woodworking is a bourbon guy and also does very good work. And he's got way more subscribers than me, let me put it that way. But he does cool stuff. Dice Spumoni. I despise Spumoni. I think it's gross. I mean, you can ask. But also bear in mind that, I'm a professional, folks. Don't try this at home. If I'm selling a clipped game, it is well clipped. And chances are, because I clip as I organize, chances are if it's clipped, it's pretty well organized too. Usually. Yeah, I stopped doing this. This is weird. This is weird. My wife said, that's weird, right? In fact, it's insane that you're saving the counter clippings. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It is. It's weird. I don't need to do it. But yeah, I mean, I don't just sit here and clip count. I mean, to be completely honest about it, 80+% of the counters I clip now are clipped on this show. I am actually not doing a lot of clipping. Not none, but not at nearly as much off-show clipping as I used to do. Because I know I'm going to clip counters on the show. So that would be funny. That would be the old men in the Muppet Show. That'd be fantastic. I mean, it's possible to concoct a use for them, but why? Why do we need that? I don't need that. I mean, yeah, you can do this. You can do this. I'm not doing this. I'm really not doing it. And interestingly, I have a reason to make fire starters. We got a fire pit outside now, so that's disgusting. That's even worse. It's not worse. It's just as insane. It's just grosser. And I'm sure Alistair is joking here. So there you go. Mike is contemplating doing his 1K celebration live stream on April 17th at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. April 17th is on a Thursday. Well, not me. So I don't have anything going on Thursday. And I'm kind of making a point to, well, I guess I'm still experimenting a little bit with this new schedule, right? I mean, it's not moving from Monday, Tuesday to Sunday, Monday has kind of changed my week dynamic, I think, a little bit. I mean, I didn't have a real choice. It was just I wasn't going to be able to do a show on Tuesday, so that was fine. So I would encourage everybody to check out Mike's channel and subscribe to it if you're not already. And he's got some good stuff. Eric from Eric's Table Napoleonic Battles. Eric, thanks for stopping by. I don't know that he was dissing the Rockford Files. I think that Rockford Files was a great show, actually. I was a little too young to appreciate it when it was on, but it was a good show. And there will be giveaways and I've got another giveaway coming up too. I'm not sure when it's happening. I kind of like it to happen before Origins, but I'd also kind of like to nail down the Charles S. Roberts Awards before that. So, we're getting there. That process is moving. So, and Connections Online just happened too. And Chaosium Con was this past weekend. It looks cool. I'd love to go to that. But it's at a time of year where normally it would just be like the either the week before or the same time as Buckeye Game Fest, and it's just not going to work for me because of that. This year I'm not going to Buckeye Game Fest, but the reason is money, and I can't go to Chaosium Con in Ann Arbor either. It's not that bad of a drive, to be honest. News, no, our process is proceeding. The nominating committee has almost completed its work. Let me put it that way. And once that happens, we can start putting the final ballot together. So you will be hearing news. I will also be asking for volunteers to help with the thing too, because I think we need like a promotions person and a tech person and that kind of stuff. It's not necessarily a huge individual hourly requirement per year, but there is a timetable and deadlines and all that stuff. So I will be asking for assistance once this year's awards are concluded. We do have a lot of wargame conventions. I mean, just here in Ohio, we've got. Well, so there's Buckeye Game Fest, which features wargaming. There's Winterfest, which is all wargaming. There's Origins, which features wargaming. There's a number of other conventions, including the Sin City Con in Cincinnati, which is supposed to be a good convention. I don't know if they have wargames or not. I'm told that there's usually something. So yeah, we've got a lot of convention. If we wanted to go out of state, I mean, even from here, WBC is it's like a 3.5 hour, maybe 4 hour drive, something like that. It's not bad at all. So, I mean, there's literally more conventions than I can go to at a reason. And I think that's kind of the realization I've made is I was going to 5 to 6 conventions a year, and that's too many. That's just too many. 2 to 3, I think is the right amount. And of course, I have an enormous affection for Origins, so we won't be giving that up anytime soon. If I have anything to say about it. There you go. Stacking Limit organized a local gaming club, and this can be done, right? I mean, you might have to kind of push it for a while till you get like a viable. You don't need 1 million people to have a game club. Usually 4 people is sufficient. If you've got 8, that's great. Maybe you could even get 2 games going or play something big if you have the right space to do it. I'm really pleased that I was able to get back into wargaming. And I was, of course, very surprised at the time because, like I said, I didn't think there was going to be much wargaming. It turns out there's a great deal of wargaming happening. So that is great. Trains, conventions, and corn. I almost took I drove past it. There's this, I don't know exactly what this is supposed to be, but I call it the Great Ohio Corn Necropolis. It looks like a graveyard, except that instead of tombstones, they are these 6-foot-high corn cobs. It's bizarre. It is bizarre. Oh hell yeah! If I was to like win the Powerball or so, I've said this already. I would open up Ardwulf's Gaming Valhalla. That would be open 24 hours, possibly closing on holidays, and would have all kinds of game space to enjoy. I have this happen regularly, but this is kind of my listening method where I'll listen to the same song or album or artist for very heavily for a couple of weeks at a time. Getting between Detroit and Columbus is a bit of a hassle, but getting between Cleveland and Columbus is a little less of a hassle. Even Columbus isn't that bad. Isn't Fred in the UK, though? Is that not the case? I could be mixing him up with somebody else. That's totally possible. Maybe it's Ricardo that. John C. is going to be in Ohio on a college visit tour. They'll be visiting Ohio State, among others, then going to Pittsburgh from Cincy for WBC. Well, John, I'll tell you what. I'll try to make it out for a Saturday. Let me put it that way. I just don't think it's going to... At this time, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So, because it's not free. Oh, so Fred moved back to France. I'm sure Fred is delighted. Yes, exactly. There would be like bungalows that you could stay in, which would include showers. And you would be able to just walk across the yard to the game room, and you would be able to keep your game set up basically forever if you wanted to. So, nah, we don't do that anymore. I'm too old for that shit. John, I don't know if you remember the old White Wolf situation at Gen Con back in the day. I don't know if you were ever at any of those Gen Cons when White Wolf was really big. But yeah, that was a spectacle, and it became troublesome, actually, and they stopped doing it. I think they were told to stop doing it. I mean, this is absolutely true, but it ain't that bad of a drive, to be honest. Ugh. Yeah, pretty much. There's new editions of all that. Well, not all, but a bunch of those games out now that look nice, and they're not bad games. And if you, a lot of the people playing them are maybe a little less intense about it than they used to be, I think. And at least that's the vibe I'm getting. I haven't actually tried any of that. So I played those games back in the day and would play it again. I ran Mage the Ascension for a little bit. It unfortunately didn't last as long as I wanted it to, because we had somebody flaked out, I forget, but it didn't last that long. That's not a bad marketing pitch right there, DJ Flippy, player of games. There is something called Game Players already, though. I forget what that is exactly. Wonder why? Like I said, it became problematic because people would be creepy around them, and it became a hassle for the convention. That's my understanding anyway. I could be wrong. I'm happy to be corrected on anything I say most of the time. Oh, I think I saw this. This is making the rounds. I don't know if this is still for sale or not. But yeah, whoever it was had like an entire wing of the house that was just library, and it's all like built-ins. It's kind of amazing, actually. Frank is letting us know. Anybody with a truck wants to pick up 250 plus unpunched games in Western Massachusetts. But Frank, this cannot happen anytime soon. So I've even got a Mage the Ascension t-shirt, which I don't buy a lot of let me restart that sentence. I have not historically bought like a lot of brand t-shirts because I'm like into the brand. Over the last couple of years, I have been doing that. Here we go. But not so much prior to that. Not that I had none, but even from that era, I got 2 Traveler shirts. I got a GURP shirt and a Mage shirt, and maybe a couple, and a D&D shirt. But my wife got me that a couple years ago. So Mo from Mo's Game Table is here. Mo, thanks for stopping by. My one Airbnb, it wasn't with Airbnb, it was with one of their competitors. It was arranged by a buddy. We stayed at it at WBC last year, and it really kind of sucked, to be honest. That's like it was not air conditioned. It was infernally hot. The air conditioner was either on full blast or it was off, and it was intolerable either way. It was not a great experience. Now, some people have had very different experiences with Airbnbs. I just didn't. I thought this was more like $550K, to be honest. And I don't know where it was at all. Hey, there's nothing wrong with Costco. We went to Costco a couple of weeks ago. Spent way too much money. Victory Point Kilroy from was here, is here. Victory Games, James Bond 00. Oh, that's a good point. I did have the James Bond 007 RPG back in the day, and that is a terrific game, actually. That is as good a game now as it was at the time, in my opinion. This sounds amazing. I like Eastern European food and Central European food and European food in general, except for Scandinavian food. Scandinavian food, some of it's good, some of it's bad. Death Ride Costco. Very good. There you go. Still, Mark would still be playing if he had a group. That's a terrific game. Very innovative at the time. It may have been one of the first games, if not the first game, to have that kind of one universal resolution table. That was not an idea that was particularly in fashion back then. The idea of having a single mechanic that would basically do everything was around as early as 78. But in terms of like that being a table, there were a couple of games that did that. The Marvel Superheroes game from TSR did that as well. I think that came out at least a couple years later than the Victory Games James Bond game. It's a terrific game. That's why I picked it up. I picked it up again. So of course you did, Mark. Your name is in the book. I noticed this immediately that your name was in the. Hey, look, I know that guy. I know that. Oh, look at that. He's in there too. So. Sorry to hear about that, Mo, but, the times are tough. What can I say? I also have no idea where that house with the big library was, but it made the rounds on Facebook or whatever like a year or two ago, and then it just popped up again in the last couple of days. I don't spend very much time on Facebook, to be honest about it. I went so far as to remove the app from my phone. Because I just didn't want to. It feels stressful for me to browse Facebook. I'm having a better experience elsewhere. Oh, there you go. Parody is what happened. Marvel Superheroes is a good game too. That's a solid game. There's a retro clone of it floating around. I forget what it's called, but there's a retro clone of it floating around, and there's a retro clone of the DC game too, but. You don't need the retro clone. They're bringing the DC one back. So, yeah, that's another thing. Is Facebook gets weird about like brand accounts and stuff like that. They want you to have everything under your personal account, and you're supposed to use your real name and all that. And I don't object to that necessarily, but it becomes problematic and it makes certain things hard to handle. As far, I might be misremembering this, but Champions might have been the second RPG I played. It may have been. I'm not sure. But it was, if it wasn't, it was the third. So, and this would have been in the 80s. Carl, thanks for stopping by. Villains and Vigilantes. So there's a new edition of that. Not new, but Jeff D, whose name you might recall from art in a bunch of the old TSR stuff, including a lot of the adventures and specifically in Deities and Demigods. Jeff D had done the Melnibonian mythos, the Elric stuff in Deities and Demigods, and Villains and Vigilantes is his game. And he may have had a co-designer, I'm not sure, but Jeff's still around. He's done some stuff, not a huge amount of output, but they finally fought the battle with FGU and got an agreement that they could publish it again, and they brought it back. So I remember the ads for that back in the day, and they were intriguing. Superworld, on the other hand, there's a very famous player of Superworld, a bunch of them actually. But you'll recognize the first one, who's George R.R. Martin. The Wild Cards Shared World Anthology series grew out of a Superworld game that a bunch of people down in that part of the country were playing, and they felt like they were wasting time because they were using their creative energy to play Superworld instead of writing stuff. So they came up with Wild Cards instead. Yes. I'd have to do a little more research on this to track this down. Champions might have been the first RPG with a points style character generation system. It might have been. I'm not positive about that. That came up. Really? I didn't know that. Really? I didn't know that. I thought that was somebody else. I could be nuts. So... Jeff lives in Texas, and he seems to be doing okay. So, It's usually not a great idea to bring like people in at your booth who don't know the products, right? That's another thing that creates problems. People be asking the people questions and they have no idea. That's problematic. That gets people to walk away. They did redo Morrow Project as well. That was a game that I was aware of way back in the days. I don't know about what the situation is now. As far as that goes, but it could be. I don't know. George has enough money. What does he care? Morrow Project was one of those games that I was aware of, but never actually saw until years after it had actually ceased to be available. But they have brought out a couple more recent editions. Yeah, at least 2. I think it's supposed to be just 2. I've seen the original Morrow Project stuff. It is very Amateur Press Association looking stuff. That's true of a lot of the old art. Champions, the first edition of Champions is like that too. Shit, even the second edition of Champions looks like it was laid out on a typewriter. That's a good point. This may have been the first appearance of this type of mechanism. Actually, this type of hero point mechanism. A lot of games have this now. D&D has this now. It's just called Inspiration or something like that. Pathfinder has it as hero points. Rollmaster never had it, but we sometimes played with it as like a house rule, as like hero points where you could like re-roll. You could spend a hero point to re-roll a fatal critical that decapitated your character, for example. So we were known to do that. We did not really end up liking that too much for Rollmaster, but a lot of games use that kind of thing now. There are also games that use experience points for that, and I have a problem with that because I think that's your character advancement. You are sacrificing your character advancement to do, not fail at this task. I will never choose to do that as a player unless it's a one shot. Then that's different. Then in a one shot, maybe. Anyway, all right, we are close to out of time. Have I covered all of the stuff? I think so. I don't know that we really got super duper deeply into the topic, but we kind of danced around it for quite a while. I would be inclined, so I guess I'll close with this. So I should really make the formal announcement. This is not the formal announcement. This is an announcement that there will be an announcement. Because I'm not going to Buckeye Game Fest, I will be, don't email me about it now. But I will be running a May 1st Traveler one-shot in celebration of May Day on May 1st. And since I'm not going to be at Buckeye Game Fest, where this was supposed to happen, I will be doing it from home on the internet. So once I have the sort of it's not very far away, but once I have the infrastructure set up for that, I will make an actual announcement. It kind of sounded like it's going to be next week. So it's going to be a one shot. I might run it twice if there's like that much demand. That's possible. But I need to build the module in Foundry first. So, there's that. John, thanks for stopping by. Stephen Erickson has stated, and I think his co-creator in Esselmont has said something similar too, that they ended up feeling like you could be either a really good game master and run games, or you could be a writer and write, and that's where your creative juice goes. And I think that is probably true for a lot of people. I noticed that if I had like jotted notes down at work, for which I do sometimes, if I like jot notes down at work and then I bring them home, and I usually don't ever even go through those notes, because my creative juices have been spent and I am out of creative juice at that time. And maybe I'll get to it, but that's just a thing that happens. Maybe we could fresh start the entire show. We could start the entire show again right now. One of these days I will do a marathon show. It's not going to be the 15-hour marathon show that I considered briefly doing at one point, because that would have been too long. But at some point, I appreciate that, DJ Flippy. Much appreciated. What does I8 gave blocked me? I have no idea what this means. So I've actually had a lot of people, and not like the RPG people necessarily, the Wargaming people who have expressed interest in a Traveler one-shot. So I'll have to have entertainment. Mo, are you volunteering to come on and be part of the entertainment? Meandering Mike left gaming in 1992, down to just 12 games, returned in 2017, and now have thousands of games. I am, Mike, I am on the same trajectory as you. You are much farther along on the trajectory than I am as far as having way too much stuff. John, thanks so much for the support. It is much appreciated. Much appreciated. Well, okay, so let's all settle. Nobody's terribly out of line here. Stacking Limit is just kind of course correcting as things come up. That's all that's happening. Everybody calm down. Everybody's cool. Everybody's cool. We're all cool. We're all like a bunch of little Fonzies around here. So with that, let's be cool, and I'm going to sign off. So everybody have a great rest of the show. Remember, Dan is, and he's never banned anybody. Actually, I have, but he's never actually banned anybody. He just, just cool a little bit. Mark, I noted. Let me see what I can put together. 10-minute miscount. I can put people in timeout though, and I've done that too. That's usually not necessary because it's almost never like a real problem here, right? Every once in a while. Anyway. Everybody have a great rest of the night. We will see you all again very soon. Remember, Dan is selling stuff on Sunday's Chit Show next week at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll be back right here on Monday night at 8. Everybody have a great rest of the night.